Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last day of the conference, of the European Conference on Academic Integrity and Plagiarism. We already experienced 2 days of presentations, so I hope you have been enjoying them and also enjoying the opportunities for networking. Today we are starting with a discussion panel which is focused on the future of software tools for academic integrity. As we have more panelists than in the other panels, there are 90 minutes dedicated to this panel, so I hope there will be a fruitful discussion. But before I introduce the panelists, let me just remind a couple of issues which make our lives and the lives of the conference participants easier or more comfortable. First of all, I would like to encourage speakers in all sessions to share their slides. You may upload them to Sched so the other participants can download them from Sched and look at them. Also, all the sessions are recorded, and we are gradually processing the recording and uploading them to YouTube. The recordings are available via the link, and we are putting the links to Sched. Yeah, so if you missed any session, either because you were in other parallel session or because it didn't fit your time zone, so you have the opportunity to watch them from the recording. And we still have two nice books written by Plagiarism in Higher Education by Sarah Eaton, which are waiting for the winners of the Best Presentation Award and the Student Photo Contest. So please rate the sessions in Sched. There are 3 smileys you may use. So please mark how you liked each session. Based on this rating, we will select the winner of the book. And the second book goes to the winner of the Student Photo Contest. If you go to the Academic Integrity European Network for Academic Integrity's Facebook page, which I'm now right now sharing the link to the chat. At the very top, it's pinned now. You can see the student photo contest. There are 3 best photos which we received. So give like to the one you like most, and this will be again the criteria for selecting the winner. Okay, so now that was all for the housekeeping issues, and now let's move to the panel. So, future of software tools for academic integrity. Of course, all of us are not only teachers or academics. We use a lot of software tools which help us to develop a culture of academic integrity at our institutions. And recently, the remote learning, of course, forced us to use even more technology. So even people who were not used to online transmission tools or other online tools were forced to use it. And there are a lot of questions and a lot of issues around these tools. Some of the tools are here to deter academic misconduct. Some of the tools are here to help support students in the developmental process of academic writing or checking the integrity of students' final submission. There are proctoring software tools which are a bit controversial, but we also listened several presentations about them. But what are the benefits of these tools? What are their pitfalls? And where do you see the future development of these tools? So these are the main questions for this panel. And I would like to welcome now our 7 panelists. 6 of them are representing our gold and silver sponsors. So thank you again for supporting this conference. And 7th panelist is Professor Deborah Weber-Wolf, from HTV University of Applied Science in Berlin, and Debbie is known to be quite often opposed to the representatives of the software tools. So she's representing academia in this panel. Oh yeah, so Debbie, welcome.
Thank you.
And as a panelist representing the companies, yeah, in the order I have them in my list, so consider it random. We have Aaron Javersky, Regional Vice President for EMEA from Turnitin.
Thank you. Appreciate, look forward to being here.
We have Peter Vitas, COO of Original.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Then we have Louis McKinnon, Head of Partner Development for Europe in Studiosity.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Artemy Nikitov, Company Board Member, Anti-Plagiat Company, Russia.
Good morning, everyone.
Frédéric Agnes, CEO of Compilatio in France.
Hi there.
And last but not least, we know Ali from our previous conferences, Ali Tahmazov, CEO of Strike Plagiarism.
Executive Director to be
Sorry?
Decided. Executive Director, not CEO.
Okay, sorry. But welcome, welcome all of you. And I have now first question. Yeah, I will have 2 seconds, 2 questions for the panelists. But for the participants, please feel free to put your questions to chat, or you may use that Q&A feature which we have in the Zoom webinar. And I will do my best to monitor all that questions and give them to the panelists. You may have the question either for all of them or specifically for some of them. And my first question to all of them is, where do you see benefits and pitfalls of using software tools for academic integrity? So kind of evaluation of current situation which we have here. And I would like first to give the floor to the representative of companies, and then Debbie. So, and let's start in. So let's start in opposite order. Then I introduce you. So Ali, can you please answer the question, where do you see benefits and pitfalls of using software tools for academic integrity?
You know, the system itself can be used only if the university actually is implementing the procedures. If there is a certain environment that is ready for prevention of plagiarism. And I see that in many universities, they're between 2 fires. In fact, from one side, it's like they understand. I mean, of course, I'm talking about different cases, but sometimes it's like this, that there is a law, there is legislation that forces, but the university, our academic community doesn't really understand why it's needed. And a local community is not really ready for it, because there are like lots of players, teachers, students, etc., and it's influencing to the evaluation process and then the final obtaining of diploma. So we see that first of all, awareness of the copyright. I mean, it's a one big plus of the of using of the anti-plagiarism system or plagiarism detection system. When they start using the system, they understand, they touch this this topic quite closely. They understand from the process of evaluation, how it's important and what it comes to, what it leads to. And we see that after, like, I'm originally from Azerbaijan, from Baku, where, you know, the people didn't treat plagiarism, never, like during the Soviet time, never seriously. And that's why we created a generation of people who, young people who doesn't really care about like copyright, plagiarism. And we had shops selling the pirate copies of CDs, etc. And this is not only in Eastern Europe, right? We had these cases in Central Europe and Western Europe before, but it changed. So the new generation is coming, and they are better understanding how the reality should look like. They are treated in terms of like the university check the paper, so they feel like they are treated in a different way. They have to stop copying, and that's how the system is influencing to them. I would say that also teachers, they disseminate, they learn, and they more and more disseminate the proper practices and the proper behavior over the new generations of students. And that's where they wouldn't be able to do it without anti-plagiarism system. I think so. I see it from the practices. I'm sorry if there might be different opinions, but I see it from personal practice. Also, we see that they're better specialists at the anti-plagiarism systems, using it, and using anti-plagiarism system comes to the using of procedures. So once you start using the car, you drive the car, you actually need to learn how to drive the car. You have to follow the rules, you have to prepare infrastructure, you have to prepare procedures, and you have to prepare the disciplinary action measures. And that what makes people, the young people who actually wants to be better, they have a better opportunity to, to show up, to show the better results. And those who cannot, they fail, and they don't. It's also a filtering system for the labor market. Yeah, kind of. So it's even using anti-plagiarism system comes to influence also to the labor market. In some way. Do I have still time or?
Well, maybe we can have it more interactive. So of course everybody will have time, but let's give the floor to the others now. Yeah. Thank you, Frederick. What about compilatio?
Hey, talking about the benefits, I think that fortunately or unfortunately maybe, using a software is, I would say, the easy part of integrity policy. It's the easiest way to send a visible and strong signal to everyone in the institutions that boundaries have been set, that a policy has been defined, and I think it gives visibility and an occasion to start the discussion if it hasn't started before. I also think that it goes in the sense of equality of treatment for students, because it allows to automate process and not being only focused on problematic situations, but really to have a general approach for everyone and not suspecting specifically someone. And I think that's a benefit. Talking about pitfalls, I would say that the first one is misunderstanding of the abilities of the softwares. Sometimes people have kind of a magic integrity tool temptation. And I have to say that it's probably not the case. And we're making hard work to make them easy to use, easy to read, but in the same time, it has to go with good comprehension of what they can do, what they don't do. Sometimes have a word about the difference between plagiarism and similarity, because every similarity aren't always plagiarism. And I will say also that it can be kind of a magic grading tool temptation also. I will be sorry to hear that teachers will spend less time on the assignment because they have pre-filtered them. I really try to define softwares as glasses and nothing more. It's just something that's here to reveal information and give some metrics, save time about things that can be automated, but it has to be really built with pedagogical approach.
Yeah, thank you. That analogy with glasses is really nice. Artemi.
You can use the microscope also.
Right. Yes, thank you, Thomas. Well, I shall say that in my opinion, the benefits of using the software for academic integrity purposes is actually quite obvious because the software allows you to check much more sources and much more documents in a very short time, which is usually not possible to do by any human being. So that's, in our opinion, why software can help universities to build a very solid basis on the academic integrity policy. But talking about the pitfalls, I shall say that there are like two major areas. The one is connected with either human factor or lack of academic policy in the institution, and it's actually quite widely discussed during this conference. And it's basically about how the tutors and professors and universities actually use these software tools. Quite often they misplace the results which need to be expertized and read by the experts. They misplace them with some percentage or some other measuring purposes, and basically use the report as a final measuring tool, which is totally not correct. And I agree here with my colleagues. And that's the first one. The other major pitfall is that the software tools for this purpose consist of two different technological stacks. The first one is algorithms, and this part is mainly in the field of our competence. But the other one is the source database, because if we don't have a quality source database, whatever the algorithm we've got, the results won't be really good. Unfortunately, a major part of high quality sources at this time are behind the paywalls. And sometimes they're not easily accessible by the companies such ours, or require quite a lot of administrative work and partnership and so on. So in my opinion, this is quite a major topic which should be addressed by all the community, because our research also shows that an open access to the scientific and student papers actually promotes much greater commitment by the university to the means of academic integrity policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Luis, you will have probably a different perspective because your company is not focused on text matching.
Sure, yeah, thank you. It's probably best to talk from a student experience perspective. I think one of the key things we've seen over the past 18 years is managing the expectations of students. So in other sectors of the economy, whether it's social media or whether it's using utility services or any wide range, including financial services as well, there has been a widespread adoption of software to try and improve efficiency and improve the experience for the student and that for the user. So with respect to academic integrity and with what we do in particular, it's trying to move education to that space where you have the matching of that expectation. So things being more on demand or real time, giving dynamic interfaces so that students are able to interact with the feedback to improve their knowledge of what academic protocols need to be adhered to. It's creating that favorable environment. I think that's a huge benefit that software can provide. It becomes kind of a natural part of the planning and writing process for the students as well. And in turn, the staff will embrace that in turn. So it becomes an efficiency measure, but it actually starts to marry those expectations in society that students are trying to expect from their institution, whilst creating a more triaged approach from faculty as well. I think one of the big pitfalls with that, though, is the human element. So there always, in our opinion, needs to be that human element. So you have to have humans in terms of the oversight, the feedback itself, personalizing it, contextualizing it to different academic institutions and different academic protocols. But that's ultimately wrapped in this quality assurance bracket as well. So you have to have that human element working with the automation, but that in sense avoids isolation of the student as well. So naturally 2020 and progressing through 2021, we're seeing obviously a big shift to independent learning, and the trend going forward probably being more blended learning. The risk is that students could become isolated if there is too much automation, too much self-reliance. So that human element working in cooperation with automation and software tools is probably the best way to avoid that potential pitfall.
Thank you. Well, it seems like we are pretty in agreement that the largest pitfall are humans. Peter, what about Original's view on this?
Yeah, it's very interesting to listen to everyone. I agree with Frederick said, like using these tools is the easy part, and there are a lot of other things that you might not think about. And I don't, maybe this wasn't Frederick's sort of main point, but that the main sort of benefit would be sort of the initiation of the discussion with the students. I believe that all these things are really important. It's like not forget sort of the discussion with the students around academic integrity and just focus on the tools. I believe that this is really important, and I believe that the tools are actually making it possible to initiate these discussions as well. And also, like Artemi said, it's really interesting this with like the source retrieval phase. Plagiarism detection, like all plagiarism detection systems, basically working the same way. You have a source retrieval process and you have a text alignment process. So the source retrieval process, actually getting hold of all the potential places where there are similarities. This is sort of the most important part. If you don't have the source, it doesn't really matter how good your text alignment process is. And I believe that originality checkers cannot do this themselves. Like we basically need help from universities to also push these sort of information owners to make material available, because that's sort of the step we need to take to get, at least if we're talking only about originality checking, to get that better. I talked a bit of, like in the video that was published on our sponsor page on sort of what lies around the corner for tech, and that's also a bit interesting in regards to what Lewis was talking about with feedback and so on. But I thought I actually focus on sort of the pitfalls, and I believe that as sort of technology moves forward, there will be sort of more focus on student integrity and sort of focus that students will be treated fair in the process where they may be accused of misconduct. And there's a term in Swedish, I can't really translate it. It's rättssäker, meaning that sort of there should be always a process around any accusation, sort of any trial, any punishment that is sort of that this is dealt with according to law, and that there are no bias or no arbitrariness sort of is allowed around anything that looks even like is a legal trial or looks like a legal trial, no matter how like small or heinous the crime is. So I believe that when it comes to academic misconduct, plagiarism, contract cheating, etc., the trial is sometimes sort of held by an autocratic teacher, sometimes misinterpreting the result and sort of trusting blindly sort of on some percentages from a plagiarism checker, or whatever tool you might have for academic integrity checking, sort of. So this may not be sort of a movement in technology, but I believe that it will be even more important as technology moves forward, making sure that we are also sort of safeguarding the processes around how we actually accuse students at the end, and don't let this be a process that is sort of arbitrarily. And I also, it was interesting, in one of the seminars yesterday, it became clear that there is no sort of complete consensus around what this was around just plagiarism, sort of interpreting plagiarism report. There is no complete consensus around what plagiarism is. And also some examples where students had been accused of misconduct since they were doing things that their text sort of, that it looked like they were hiding things, but when they started digging, this was in the chat, but it looked like they were hiding something, but when they started looking at this, there wasn't actually anything hidden, but they were still sort of getting a consequence because of this manipulation of the text that looked like they were hiding something.
Thank you. Aaron?
Well, thank you. It's always tough to go last because everyone's already stolen all the good ideas. But listen, I view it this way, right? So the benefits, obviously, of software tools, particularly as we move into this virtual world and the hybrid world, will be there is the accessibility from wherever you are, either as a student delivering your paper and using it. There's the benefits of having these software tools and making it more efficient to do what you do. You know, I do want to, and a couple of people talked about it, and I think, you know, Frederick said it perfectly earlier, is the pitfall that I always worry about with any of these tools is that it isn't a magic solution. And it's there to help instructors or students do what they do best. Right, so it's not there to, you know, absolutely say something has been plagiarized or say someone has done something wrong, but to enable somebody to look at things more efficiently and get their job done in a better way. But I always am concerned that, you know, some people are looking for that magic button from the software tool that will just do it for them, and that's not our role or any of the role of the companies that are on here today. It's to make it more efficient and to ensure that you have a consistent way of looking at something like academic integrity across your organization.
Good, thank you. I saw Debbie taking the notes, so Debbie, floor is yours now.
Thank you, Thomas. Thomas noted yesterday I probably need my boxing gloves for today, but I decided not to wear them. Yes, I'm in a hard position going last with all these other ones. I'm going to first address each of the panelists that were before me, and then I have some thoughts of my own. Ali, you started talking about copyright, and I think it's really important that we make it clear that plagiarism has nothing to do with copyright. There are copyright problems that are not academic integrity issues, and there are academic integrity issues that are not copyright problems. So I find it really important that we make it clear this is about academic integrity. And so we need to explain why we cite the sources. We're not just doing it as a silly exercise, hurdles that we have to jump over, but we have to learn why we go about citing our sources. Frederick, you noted the equality of students, and that would be nice if the software was perfect, but it's not. And that's the problem, is that those who know how to fool the software will manage to get through, as opposed to those who were perhaps being a little bit more simplistic about it. So the software tends to find the more simplistic plagiarists, and not those that have done a lot of, I don't know, invested criminal energy into making their system or gaming the system. It is important, as you've noticed, Frederick, it's a tool. It's just a tool. And this is really, really important for me, that you, as the companies, make it clear you're not the solution for all the problems. You're just a tool, and maybe you have multiple tools in your toolbox that you're offering us. Artemi and also Peter have sort of gotten me to an idea, both of you correctly bashing the publishers. What the publishers ought to do, which they won't do, but they should use their ill-gotten gains to offer a programming interface so that you, as the software people, can send your hashes into them and ask, does this match any of the hashes that you need to create on the basis of an agreed upon algorithm for all of your papers? That would be something that would be really useful to have, and would make it so that they can keep their papers without having to give them to you. So I think this is a good point that you've pointed out, is that we have more players in the system. There's not just teachers and students, but we also have the publishers out there who are perhaps not helping as much as they could. Lewis, I'm going to skip over you for a second, and then, because I'm doing the plagiarism tools first, and then get back to Studiosity. Peter, you were talking about the Rechtssicherheit. This is sort of security in the legal system, that you are secure, that you know that due process has been done. And this is a German thing. We have Rechtssicherheit now, the same idea in Germany. And what we have is the problem in Germany, at least, as opposed to countries like in the UK, where they're much farther ahead than we are. We end up being all the persons. We are the police. We have to find the crime. We're the district attorney. We prepare the case against the accused. We're the judge. We decide what the sanction is going to be. And then we also have to be the jailers. We have to actually assess and deal with the sanctions. So if the sanction is write another paper for a just passing grade, we have to read the paper again. We have to deal with it again. And so this is what causes many teachers to say, it's just failing. I'm not going to worry about it. It causes too much work. Aaron, okay, I've complained about Eternity a long time. At least you've moved the number down from a big number at the top to a smaller one in the middle. If I can't get you to lose the number, can I get you to maybe offer multiple numbers? What is the longest match? What in how many sentences are affected? Different kinds of numbers, so that it becomes clear that it's not, a litmus test that comes back either red or blue, and it says it's either plagiarized or not. That's the problem, is that teachers, of course, because of the systemic problem of we having far too many students for far too few teachers, we need to save time. And that's why people tend to use this as a tool. Now, getting back to Lewis, we were talking about the student experience and issues with isolation, which I think is a really important thing for us to be thinking about, not only in pandemic times, but in general. I do have an issue, though, and I would call this the third-party problem. If we get students used to sort of okay third-party software systems that we use, then we open the door so that all of these systems who are only trying to get money off of our students and blackmail them, and ghostwriters and stuff like that, they suggest as well, oh, we're here to help you. And so we need some way of making it clear, okay, the university thinks this is okay, but they don't think that is okay. And when we're using tools like Studiosity or even plagiarism detection software, so-called plagiarism detection software, we end up in the problem that we're getting the students used to using third-party software. So maybe it would just be helpful to allow us to at least brand our use of the system so that we can make it clear this is at least approved from the university. The general point that I'd like to make, and it's one that came up yesterday here in Germany as the Free University of Berlin decided that former Family Minister Franziska Giffey did plagiarize in her doctoral dissertation. The group that I work with, Vroni Plagviki, had documented with extreme investment of time the plagiarism and the false citations that she had in her work. And in the report from the commission, they said, this time we didn't just use Vroni Plagviki, we used, drumroll, PlagScan. And the press has jumped all over this, saying, oh, well, now they're using PlagScan. Now everything's better. And it's like, guys, look at the results. It doesn't matter what PlagScan says. PlagScan's not going to find 10% of what was documented because it has been rewritten too much. And this is just a big problem, that when you understand how rewriting works, it makes it difficult to understand. And so that's why I'm always stressing, let's get away from the numbers, okay? We need to focus more on what it is we're doing. And when we have the numbers, what do students do? They rewrite to the number because they think there's some acceptable level of plagiarism. Ghostwriting companies suggest this. And so we have a problem here. They will rewrite to the score. Teachers, if they're using it, a software system, will see, oh, I need to teach them this kind of referencing there. I need to suggest either a direct quotation, a better paraphrase, making it clear where it's coming from, or I need to get the students to rewrite in their own words. And again, this is the big problem with too many students, too few teachers. So we need to really, I would appeal with all of you to please teach the people who are buying your software to ignore the number, because we got to get away from that and focus on academic integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And you perfectly prepared the floor for my second question, because now we kind of mapped the benefits, but also the pitfalls and problems. So my second question for the representatives of the companies is, where do you see the main opportunities and challenges for future development, and what innovations does your company plan? And there is also ongoing discussion in chat. Some of the discutees propose the decentralization and maybe blockchain for plagiarism detection. And the latest comment is about the detection of essay bots. So might be some ideas you may want to comment on. And let's go in opposite order. Aaron.
Sure. One of the areas I see for big opportunities, and maybe it's a little bit about what Deborah just talked about as well, is if I look at what we've created over time, it's been more on the policing side, and trying to find out when a student has done something wrong. I think there's a big opportunity for us, and we're starting to work on these, to also create tools that help the student or the writer make sure they don't get in trouble down the road, or they're not doing something wrong. So I think that's one big opportunity. Obviously, it turned in, we think there's an opportunity to also take this idea of academic integrity, into the areas of test taking, right? And making sure that as we are in this remote world, we're ensuring not just the written words that we're submitting are correct, but also making sure that as we take exams, there's integrity there. And I think that's an opportunity as well as we move forward. But I do think a big one is how we help and create some software tools that on the front end get away from just pulling people over at the end to say, we think you've done something wrong. One of the big challenges, I think, is, and Deborah brought this up and some others, it really starts to talk about the content on their side. So yes, they're the publishers, and we've tried to work with the major publishers to get their content. But as I think about it, and being, thinking about it globally, it's how do we also make sure that we are having a database of content that truly is global, right? So it's not just taking papers, translating them back and seeing what was in English, but looking for local content in local language, and making sure that we're able to broaden that base as well. And that's a challenge, right? Because there's a lot of languages out there. There's a lot of papers out there. So I think that is a big opportunity, but also a challenge for us to get there.
Thank you. Peter.
Yes, I thought of this when Deborah was speaking, where sort of students, sometimes when I talk to people, I've seen where they hand over sort of plagiarism detection totally in the hands of the students, and students are sort of rewriting phrases within their personal presentation just to get to zero. This, like, students believe that their job is to go from whatever percentage there is to zero. Zero is good, anything above is bad, sort of. And I actually had it was a former student. It was a teacher assistant, and they were sort of discussing plagiarism detection. And she used plagiarism detection on her own when she was a student. And she said, I'm always confused when I get to sort of places where it says sort of in my personal presentation, my name is this, or I'm studying this, and the plagiarism checker sort of says, here's a similarity. What, should I rewrite this like in my personal presentation? And it's just like they don't really know what their task is. So I've been talking a lot about this with the problem of sort of handing plagiarism detection sort of completely over to the students. I believe that sure, they should know about it, and maybe even be able to have access to the report as well and actually test documents. But teachers needs to be at the side of the student, otherwise they will not know what their task is, and they will sort of think that removing a grammatical error or a misspelling or whatever is the same thing as removing sort of concerning similarities within a report. It's completely two different things. And anyway, I prepared a few things about this, where what's around the corner for sort of plagiarism detection, for tools for academic integrity and so on. And I talked a bit about that in this video presentation that we uploaded. But also yesterday, we're talking about paraphrasing and the problem of paraphrasing, where you can actually paraphrase until it sort of the plagiarism checker don't find this anymore. And like we have a tool for cross-language text matching, as we call it, and it's not sort of just translating text. It's actually I've tried to understand how this works. We cross-search currently against 8 different languages, and basically what it's using is, like, we're looking at words that are close. So car, for example, would be close to Swedish bil, and Italian carro, I think it is, and well, you know, understand the thing, so that we see that, all right, these words are related. And we have been talking about this also. You can actually use this to actually find paraphrasing by looking at words that are related, not only sort of synonyms, but also like which words are and phrases are related. So I believe that even if we aren't first, I think that paraphrasing tools will be sort of that is sort of focused on the problem of paraphrasing. I still think it's relevant what I said earlier, that when technology moves forward, it's important to make sure that and as Aaron said, like we can't. Many are looking for this magic button, and so all right, now there's a tool for paraphrase detection. Well, then any match within that one will sort of be taken as misconduct, and I think it's dangerous. Every step tools for academic integrity sort of safeguarding is taking, especially sort of ghostwriting detection and plagiarism detection needs to be sort of, we need to be even better at actually what Deborah said. This is just a tool. This is like, we are pointing to some things that you should look at, but we are not making the decision. We are sort of not the magic button that will sort of release you from this problem at your university.
Thank you. Luis.
Thanks. Yeah, I would just like to maybe talk about what some of the top end goals would be for everybody. So, for us, it's, for example, improving attainment, experience, and well-being. Those three key pillars that ultimately, reduce a lot of these issues that we're talking about in a holistic fashion. And going back to Deborah's point, I do agree with, a closer affinity between institutions and the software that they use is essential, so that students feel more reassured that they are using an approved piece of software, but also approved platform or service. And with that, I think, one of the points I might challenge that Deborah said is that the increase of use of services and software by institutions, I believe, would actually reduce the use of nefarious sources of software and services, because if you have this supported environment, this almost approved list, an approved integrated set of services, I think that's a future objective and a future opportunity for both institutions and students. They'll feel more reassured about using those. So in that sense, I think a future objective is an opportunity indeed, is to bring institution libraries, administrators, academic staff into that process with these key stakeholders in the software space. And that helps shape the nature of the guidance and the resources. And it can all be supported ultimately by a global network of human interaction as well. So you have that very rigorous established network that is underpinned by what an institution is trying to relay back to their student body as well. So we have things like an academic advisory board, we have something called the student circle, we have pro-vice chancellor roundtables. That is all the industry engagement from the sector with the private sector as well, to ensure that the students are being supported in a cooperative manner. I think that's a big future opportunity for a lot of us. But the key thing is looping back to the institution's resources. So this all has to be contextualized. So a one-size-fits-all approach might work in some areas with standard protocol in place. But there was a point in a discussion that I was part of on Wednesday, which is to do with maybe a McDonald's approach at times, or a very standard cut and paste approach. And I think that's something that is an opportunity for us to avoid. We can actually start to work in deeper collaboration to contextualize our approach, to make sure that students are being given the support that the institution really needs. So one of the particular areas is to establish this dynamic access to different resources for different study modes. So it's no longer traditional on campus, as we know. We have online, we have blended, we have transnational education, we have a various mix now, depending on what study mode the student prefers. And to have that level of standardization is useful in that approach, so that all who are studying on the same kind of program at the same institution have the access to those same kind of resources underpinned by those software tools. I think that's a key opportunity for all here, to give that equitable access. But naturally, a challenge with that is working practices between the institution, whether it's state sector education, private sector education, and private sector corporates. There's always that changing dynamic, different cogs moving at different speeds, different objectives. And I think that's a very long-term challenge that isn't necessarily a problem. I think it's a good learning opportunity for both, because if we're able to kind of adapt and move each other forward into the same kind of space, ultimately the learner will benefit there, ultimately tackling those areas of improved attainment, well-being, and experience as well. But it's those changing speeds, those changing objectives that I think will be quite challenging going forward.
Thank you. Artemi?
Yes, we see that people who plagiarize are constantly mastering new and always more advanced ways of plagiarized, which are the paraphrase, rewrite, cross-language plagiarism, and so on. So one of the major challenges is a constant technological development, so that our software is always responding to this new challenge, to this new ways of plagiarizing in the best way. The other major challenge is the constant development of usability, so that our report is easily understandable by the users, and so that it can be totally interactive, and also so on. And the third major challenge we face is also being discussed today, in quite a detail. It's a constant work with our corporate users and students, where we shall teach them how to use the system, and also sometimes explain what is plagiarism, and even explain sometimes what should be the academic integrity policy. So we do a lot of seminars, and we even introduced an annual conference on plagiarism in Russia. And for example, last year's conference was attended by almost 2,000 people, which in my opinion is quite a huge number. So it's a kind of a one point, which I may say, our constant development. And one of the most interesting latest technological developments we've been through was the cross-language detection of text reuse. I'm not going to stop on this at this point, because we have a presentation of our research today at 11 o'clock. So I invite everybody to come around and to listen to what we've got to say. Talking about our plans, I shall say that we're not just a technological company. We actually do quite a lot of scientific research on the topic. And then we have some ability to use this research in the development of our software. But our main goal is to move from kind of a search tool to a kind of a smarter assistant for all our users, the corporate users, the students, and two technological ideas which we are going to implement in some near future are the thematical search. It's a kind of a search where you can use the whole document as a search request and then receive all the documents which are similar to the subject. So at some near future, we're going to introduce this so that apart from getting the results during the text reuse detection, our users will have this similar documents from the database also for analysis. And the other quite interesting technological challenge we're facing now, as we're taking part in some competition. It's a kind of a 3-year competition which will end up in 2 years' time. So now we're right in the middle of it. It's a automatical grade of school essays. So in Russia, secondary school students have to take the final essay, which is today checked and graded by the human tutors by quite a formal system. So the main goal of this competition is to create an automatic system which will grade these essays not worse than the human tutor. So we're looking forward to get these results. It's in our opinion, it's going to be quite interesting. And if we're successful in this, then we'll definitely implement this in our system. Yeah, thank you.
Good, thank you. Frederic?
Yeah. I see many opportunities, let's say, for the company and for the EdTech market, let's say. Talking about EdTech, I think that plagiarism detection just makes sense in a context of highly writing essays, pedagogical activity. If you don't evaluate this way, maybe there can be other opportunity. I mean, personally, I've been in pain through all my studies, writing kilometers of lines, sometimes about silly things I don't really appreciate it, but I had to be graduated. And I wasn't always passionate about what I had to write. So I think that the pandemic situation we had gave technological enthusiasm for teaching. It gives the opportunity to discover that we can have teaching, a distant teaching using technology. And personally, I think about opportunities of proposing new pedagogical activities within informatics, with digital, that doesn't really exist yet. And I will be glad if we had less writing, but that's one point. Oh, it's a personal point of view. I see Debbie nodding. Yeah. I mean, it's not on and off. It's about you have a lot of this and less of that, and maybe we'll have a wider range of activities. But anyway, about company, I think that talking about as a software company, the opportunities I see is that we have a lot of cloud things today, of global systems, and sometimes a lack of visibility about where the data are, the propagation of the data in the world. And so far it's getting bigger and bigger, but I think that maybe we'll have a return, a moment where universities will have maybe more control, more feedback about their data, their use, and have more freedom and independency about their assets. And I think it's also an opportunity. And talking about similarity detection, I think that lots of companies are working about improving text matching systems using stilometry or using a semantics approach rather than words and formal matching approach. We had a competition in 2017 where we won a task in about that, and we were really glad about it. But it takes really time from what works in the lab to what can be proposed efficiently to end users. So that's a challenge we're facing, and we hope we'll be having good results in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. And last but not least, Ali, now you have the disadvantage of being the last one who answered the question.
Sure. Well, basically, I see one of the big challenge is the pandemia. And in fact, we see that before pandemia in Europe, and most of the European countries, the evaluation was based on the paperwork. And it was mostly like involved in filling all these documents. And the student had very little access to the actual similarity report and able to correct, etc. Rather, it was checking the final document, comparing to the standards, and then make decisions. Now the situation is changing, and we see that universities and the academic communities understanding a very important role of involvement of students in evaluation process. So it will be more based on a feedback technology. That's why we developed our feedback technology. It's developing quite fast because we understand and we see that teachers have challenges in terms of time, stress, with understanding all this technology, and they have very big lack of time. And that creates interest, and that creates making fast decisions and sometimes harmful decisions for the students. That's why we are also not only developing, because we created a new system ASAP that is quite, with lots of extensions in terms of the feedback, but because we would like to help the universities to pull out, to step out of this paper bureaucracy. And at the same time, we see that while the pandemic was increasing, there was like the more and more companies, like contract cheating companies, providing their services, and lots of students like were harmed with this. I mean, they had problems with the management of the universities. There were lots of cases that the students were found buying the papers, and we also we were asked to develop a technology to somehow help to detect whether the paper was written by the student or not. Of course, it's very challenging, and it's quite difficult to figure out who exactly wrote the paper, even because on the style and etc. Because it could be different type of papers. But they are technology that it will help, like based on paraphrase, based on translation, etc. With the complex, we could have more or less some understanding whether it was at least written by the students or it was completely not a paper of the author, right? So basically, that's we also see that because we work in many countries, and we see that they struggle with national digitalized content. And that's one of the big problem of the not willingness of the university to start using the system, because they say like, look, we don't have papers written in our language, right, somewhere in Africa. So why we need to? I mean, let's wait when the content will collect, and then we will decide, right? So that's the challenges and opportunities and all.
Okay, thank you. I bet that Debbie has a lot of comments on that.
How many hours can I speak? Try to keep this short. And so Louis gets my comments first because he was last time. You've pointed out that you need to have lots and lots more tools and decentralize everything, which sounds wonderful, but there is a problem. I know it's very hard to get agreement within any part of an institution, much less an entire institution, as to what we need to do. Because teachers, of course, are like cats. Everyone has their own opinion about how to do things, and they won't agree on things. And even if we will get to the place that one group inside the university, one institution says, okay, we're going to allow our students to use the following tools, and the other one say, no, 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 not at all. What we're going to have is students living together, of course, in the student dorms or in student apartments, and they don't know why. Why can my buddy over there use this tool and I can't? We had this discussion back in the dark ages when I was studying at university in California, was the question of calculators. Calculators were so expensive then, so only those who had parents with lots of money were able to purchase these calculators to use them. And of course, I was studying physics, so it was like, no, you're not allowed to use a calculator. You're supposed to be able to do all the calculations in your head. And quite a large discussion like this needs to be redone with all of these tools. And of course, that's exhausting, having to discuss, are we allowed to use this or not? Because depending on the program, some will say it's okay to use, and others will say it's not okay to use. And the other ones I'm going to try and sort of pull together, because many of you have noted similar things that are happening. Guys, you got to wake up to what's happening out there. The automated paraphrasing tools, they're not as stupid as the old one used to be. They've been around for forever. I've often demonstrated this for the past 10, 15 years. The synonymizer, how it works, replacing words with other words from a thesaurus. But we don't just have these automatic paraphrasers now. We also have automatic writing based on GPT-2 or GPT-3. And these are getting so hard that teachers have issues trying to understand, is this automatically generated writing or not? And of course, there's all these nice things that don't help much with languages like English, where even the Americans and the British can't agree on whether the car has a trunk or a boot. And each of these words, trunk and boot, have completely different meanings. And so this understanding of textualization, understanding of the semantics is very, very hard. That's one of the real things I teach in real life, semantic modeling. Trying to get computers to understand semantics is a very, very large exercise in frustration. Stilometrics, of course, is nice, but as we had a short discussion here in the chat as well, people have gotten to the expectation that stilometric tools are also black boxes. I put the paper in and it comes back out with a stilometric score. Well, most of the stilometrics are focused on English. I live in a country in Germany where we have lots of words, Schifffahrtskapitänsmütze, that we can put together that just completely break a lot of the models of stilometrics. So this has to be modeled to the different languages, which has also been pointed out. The global nature of what we're dealing with right now, and having to deal with translation plagiarism. Some of your tools are saying, oh, we do translation plagiarism. I'm sorry. The test that I did with Thomas and colleagues recently, where we looked at a lot 15 tools and we looked at 8 different languages and we discovered translation zip. It isn't working. Maybe you found the secret sauce in the past year or so, which would be cool, but I don't really believe it because there's so many ways of dealing with the translation, getting a machine to translate, and then having someone who knows the language polish it later. I've seen this and I saw it back in 2001. So it's been around for a long time. And that's why I would strongly suggest that you guys look at this wonderful data that I'm providing to you with my colleagues at VroniPlugWiki. That's how people plagiarize. We have documented by hand how people plagiarize. And that shows you the wide spectrum from copy and paste and a big slice to the changes that people do. How do they actually choose, rewrite the texts? What are the things that caused us to realize that there was plagiarism here? How are you going to deal with the Wikipedia? Yes, many of you have it in your databases, but the problem is the Wikipedia is a living beast. It changes every minute. And there's also people who register with the Wikipedia and say, could you please hide this page for a little bit because I just used part of it in my paper. Of course, they know that they're doing wrong there, but this is always the issue. Which version of Wikipedia are we actually using? We've got cool tools that we can use to dig back through and try and find this. But I don't think we're going to be able to solve the translation plagiarism issues. So we have to look at other ways of doing evaluation and not just focus on text-based communication, although I really, really think there is value in text-based communication. I force my computer science students to write complete sentences. That's why you find me on these professor evaluation boards as a very cruel teacher, because she makes people write incomplete sentences. They have to learn to communicate. And then we have to see that we have different kinds of assessment, not just text-based assessment. Jerry has asked here in the question and answer, what about similarities in non-text materials, charts, maps, illustrations, technical drawings, computer code, 3D designs, all sorts of things like this. We have to realize that text is just a part of what we're actually doing at university. Now, there is some work being done in the United States on image recognition. They're desperately trying to clone Elizabeth Bick, who's able to see the changes that have been done with Photoshop, and they're trying to get this to work, although it's a difficult thing. That's something we need to really work on. How do we deal with all these additional materials? And maybe what would help would be to take away this expectation of instantaneousness. You don't have to take 2 weeks to get the result back. This fast, quick, efficient, wait a minute, it's a complicated thing. It would be useful to tell teachers, okay, this is going to take a while. You know, it might be faster for you to Google this, but you know, we're going to do our best. Okay? And now what I want from you is the following. Someone had noted this before. It's just part of the process, yes, and that's the big problem. Once I find plagiarism, the work begins. And that's where the software systems that I have tested for the past 15 years tend to fall down. Yes, you produce reports that are sometimes enormously long. No academic board is going to read through that. So I need to have tools that help me to extract portions of the text, add the metadata, because you usually can't tell me what page this was on. This is something that an examining board needs to know so that they can evaluate my accusation of plagiarism. What page, what lines maybe would be really nice. So let us pick parts of it out, add the metadata. Let us prepare a report, a side-by-side that does not need an internet so that I have to go out to the internet and then compare the things. What I need is a side-by-side so that I can put this on paper. Yes, I know, I'm sorry, but we're still in a paper world, to an examining board so that they can say, oh yeah, hey, that's bad. Okay, we need to think about some sanction and then decide, is it going to be a teaching moment or is it going to be a moment where we're looking at punishing the student in a much harder way. So that would be my desire for you, is that you get away from making your, yes, usability is important, but don't be making your interfaces cute and flying windows and stuff like that. No. What we need is something where at the end we get something that we can really use in a disciplinary hearing situation. So that would be the big thing that I would wish from you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Debbie. We have interesting questions in QAA, but we have only 18 minutes left till the end of the panel. So obviously not able to deal with everything, but I hope that the panelists can see them, see the questions. There is a question, 2 questions from Ansgar about some insight about experience of the of introduction of the software in the universities. Kind of related question from Mike Reddy about the kind of steering committee and expert advisory group. So something which can help institutions or users from the institutions to learn how to use these software tools. Then Ansgar commented on the suspiciousness of zero similarity presented by the system. And then Debbie already commented on the question from Jiří about the capability of recognition similarities in non-textual information. So yeah, I would give now 2 minutes to each of the panelists to comment on whatever they want about these questions, and then we can conclude. And now we start from the middle, so not it's just there and back. So Luis.
Yeah, thank you. One comment I'd like to make just from this morning, it's very interesting from my perspective, see that there's almost a default position of assuming that everything's bad, you know, rather than looking at tools to nurture good behavior and actually nurture good practice. Obviously, plagiarism is always linked to this, you know, bad, it's a bad word, it's things that we need to avoid, of course we do, but you know, it's interesting that there's not really been a position where somebody's looking at, okay, what do we do to actually encourage learners to continue conducting themselves effectively and getting access to that support? So Ansgar's, you know, question here about users that rely on it, our experience is that it's actually at opposite ends of the scale. You have those students that are just starting out on their academic journeys, maybe at foundation level or level 4, first year of undergraduate. And even those on a smaller scale, but those at level 6, but at a much higher scale at level 7 as well, who are seeking confidence about how to access the resources, they've probably never engaged with help before. They may have come from a rote and reiterate pedagogical system, and they're trying to adapt into actually asking for help. But then there is the other end of the scale where you have a lot of students that want to maintain a high benchmark. They really want to keep doing well, so they will access any resource that their university has approved to actually help them maintain that. So we actually see that it's about educating the students to use it in a dynamic situation. They can use it to help get them their first foot in the door in the higher education space, build that confidence, and then when they move to level 5 and level 6, years 2 and 3 of an undergraduate program, they never use our services in some cases because they have those confidence levels that have been improved. And the other end of the scale, those at level 7, they may have come back into education after 10 years, myself included, doing my master's. I would have loved a service where I could actually access that on demand in real time, flexible around my work arrangements, and being able to maintain that high level of achievement not just because I lack the confidence, but because I want to use the tools available to me in 2021 to be able to achieve a high level of performance. So I think that the education there is about the cooperative approach from the software company, the service itself, but it's that dual dialogue to the students from the institution as well, saying that this is for you depending on your context. Not everybody will use it, but it's about that effective messaging, not forcing students to have to use this in all cases, but using it in the right way based on their own situation.
Thank you. Artemi?
Well, from our experience, if the implementation of software tools at some university complements with some administrative measures like implementing the academic integrity policy, training, and actually pursuing the tutors to use the software, then we actually see quite dramatic reduce of plagiarism at these organizations. Unfortunately, there is another case when sometimes universities purchase the software but don't actually use it. And in this case, well, almost nothing happens. Talking about the report, we're actually trying to get away from this percentage ideas. I've already talked about it earlier today. Because of the wrong interpretation. So we're trying to get to the more interactive report where you can actually see what is, in our opinion, was paraphrased, what was actually text reused, what is a common knowledge, and so on. So then the user can actually work with the report and get some more information for his research and making the decision on whether there is a plagiarism there or not.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes, I thought I would be happy if everyone buying tools for plagiarism detection and so on would all think like Deborah. It would be a clear product roadmap where it's not sort of contradicting itself and so on. I'm just thinking about this with a few years ago, or it's actually many years ago, I think it was like 7, 8 years, or even maybe 10. We did not return reports until after, well, I think the quickest you could get it was like 5 hours or so. But the market demand is 2 minutes. So like, and there's just so much you can do in 2 minutes. So we just have to live up to that. We've had discussions with a lot of customers to sort of look, we can give you a report very quickly. Now we have the capacity to deliver or at least like quality report, maybe not top quality report, but at least like a quality report within 2 minutes. But this is actually sometimes a hard request. It cannot take more than 2 minutes to produce a report. Also, another thing that Deborah said with the non-textual, the textual sort of content, we see this sometimes where like pictures and so on. We do, like, we can optically read sort of text out of a picture. So if you send us a picture that is sort of a picture of text, yes, that we can OCR this out of this and actually do plagiarism test detection. We need the actual text though, but we don't look at pictures as if someone copied a picture, or like if it's an art class example, they painted something, but it's actually a ripoff for someone else. We don't even pursue this because we believe that it's something completely different, sort of. So that's something that we won't do. Were there other things that I put down here? Otherwise, I believe that accuracy, that's sort of the most important thing for us. Like that involves a lot of things, like being better at finding similarities that are sort of the actual similarities. That includes like getting publisher sort of collaborations and so on, although that's hard. That's one of the things that we struggle with. Like normally it would be great if everyone, as Deborah said, had sort of an interface where we could just tap into and get these documents and allow us to do this. But normally it comes with a large fee, and sometimes there's a lot of legal things and obligations from our side as well. So that's something that would be, repeating myself a bit, would be nice to have help with from the academic community, pushing sort of for having interfaces where plagiarism detection systems can tap into.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, Frederick.
Well, I was thinking about Deborah saying that there are no systems efficient for checking, rephrasing, semantic similarities. I agree. And I think that the efficient systems haven't been seen yet. Just when I mentioned that we want something, it's pure research. It's not something that can be used and can be tested now. I mean, I was also thinking about, we all agreed to say that we are not magic systems. And Deborah told us about, please don't make your user interface fancy. They has to be efficient and just give us the result. And the fact is, you're right. We are not the magic systems, but we spent a lot of time and energy to look like, because we have to make the system attractive so that people will easily accept them, will have the will to use them, and maybe pleasure to use them. And I mean, I have no answer, but it's hard to find the balance between efficiency and sexiness. And
yeah, and users want both.
We are trying to stand on both legs, but yeah, we have to find a balance.
Frederick, I don't think anyone would ever have said that any of our systems are sexy.
Yeah. Oh, let's try.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, Frederick. Like with this, it's so we have two different agendas. It's what we should be doing, what we see, what Deborah is saying. Like if everyone was thinking like Deborah, that would be nice. But like there's a lot of people that don't, or I would say the majority doesn't. They want something that looks sexy, as you said, Frederick. And they might not care about a lot of other things that we have on the top of the agenda, and that Deborah and everyone else here on this panel would have on the top of the agenda, is quite often not the customer's top of the agenda.
Great. Yeah, we still have two more panelists to go. Aaron?
Yeah, I just wanted to, and it's only 2 minutes, follow up on something that Peter said, which I thought was it's really important, right? For any to work really effective, it's all based off, one of the things it's really based off of is what content set can you check against? And the more that institutions can help and push, whether it be publishers or others, to make that information accessible to be checked against for all of us, the better it is. And it was mentioned, right? Sometimes these are very expensive to get or not, but that's one of the things that's important from a tool. But the more help we get from the organization, from the institutions to make that information available, the more that we can focus on building the tools that help and help you efficiently, look at similarity, whether it be in written word, in code, or images. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Ali?
Well, everything is said. Just only I would like to emphasize that the system is developed not only based on global trends and technological trends, but also on the expectations of the clients, and sometimes teachers are looking for the shortcut in making decisions, and not all teachers, of course, but many. And whenever they make decisions, it's very connected to the procedures on place and regulations and a personal approach, right? And it's all influenced to the functionality. Because we want to be a customer oriented, but we also don't want to follow the wrong experiences, right? We would like actually to balance between the customer expectations and what it has to be, in fact, because we understand the possible risks of following the wrong practices. But in fact, and of course, without personal meetings and talkings and trainings to the teachers, it will be very difficult to understand the right way of developing of the software. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And we still have 2 minutes for Debbie.
Oh, I'll talk for forever until you turn me off. Thank you for this. And I mean, the thing is, we need to be continuing this discussion. And we have a problem. I think that what you get is the purchasing officers trying to buy the software, and they have other ideas what they want, what they think is sexy, because they're not talking to their own teachers. This is a university. Peter, you can sing a song about how horrible it was trying to communicate with my own university, that we had to finally get to communicate because my institution just was not asking the right questions. They weren't talking with us. I mean, come on, I'm here, talk to me. It's very, very frustrating. So I would strongly suggest that all of the systems need some sort of a focus group, not always the same people, getting people from different institutions, different fields, different levels of what they're trying to teach, because everyone teaches somehow differently, and get some more feedback on this. I mean, I offered this to you, Peter, 15 years ago, I think. One of my students wanted to help you fix your interface, and she wanted to do it as her internship, and it just didn't work. No internships in Sweden. Okay, that's a Swedish problem. But there are people out there willing to help you, but you need to get away from focusing on just the purchasing officers and the salespeople. I often have issues with salespeople not understanding the teaching process itself. So it's important that you get your salespeople also to understand how the university works, not as they experienced it when they were students, but they have to understand it from the point of view of the instructors and the processes. And of course, the processes are really the big problem. They're different from university to university, from country to country. And any help that you can give us for supporting these processes, producing the documentation that we need, preserving the documentation so that it's possible to actually go back and find things again years later when we have a second case against the student. This is all really, really important there. I want to thank you, however, all for being here and discussing this. It's something that's very close to my heart. And so I hope we were able to get some ideas out. The discussion in the chat has been wonderful. I've been torn between taking notes and looking at the chat here. So maybe we continue on for the rest of the day with our discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, Debbie, and you are much better in multitasking than me. So I was just like glad to be able to follow everything. But thanks very much, all the panelists. I think it is really important to have these discussions between the companies who provide these systems and people from academia who use them to like constantly getting closer to each other in our views and in our needs. It's a bit difficult to have it as an online discussion, even more with 7 panelists, but I really do hope that we will be able to, or allowed to, meet in person next year when the conference is taking place in Porto. So I hope that you will continue your support to the conference, and that like with this discussion we can help to create both better tools for the educators and better processes at the universities, because there are pitfalls and challenges on both sides. So thank you once again. Now the gold sponsors have the benefit of having own room for the social coffee break. So if you want to talk to Anti-Plagiat, go to Havel. If you want to talk to Original, go to Forman. If you want to talk to Turnitin, go to Bergman. These 3 rooms are dedicated to our gold sponsors. And yeah, there is a special room Krteček for all the social coffee breaks. So that might be used for the conversation with the others. Thanks again for thanks again the panelists. Thanks again to all the attendees for their nice questions and discussion in chat. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in one of the parallel sessions at 11.